1810, the Peugeot family business turns to bicycle production. The first vehicle produced by the company that entered the automobile industry will be a steam engine automobile. How did Peugeot produce its first car? How did it evolve from a bicycle manufacturer to one of the world's largest automakers? The story of Peugeot begins. Founded in 1810, the Peugeot family company first produces hand tools and kitchen utensils, and then continues with the production of bicycles under the leadership of Armand Peugeot. The first lion logo to represent the brands appears in 1847. This lion figure reflects the durability and sharpness of the company's products. In the 1890s, although the company was successful in many areas, Armand Peugeot decided to do something different. The automobile industry is very interested and wants to enter this field. At that time, the industry was dominated by steam engine cars, which began to be produced in the 18th century. In the 1880s, many companies in France were producing steam-powered cars. German engineer Karl Benz produced the world's first horseless carriage with an internal combustion engine in 1885. Therefore, the internal combustion engine, a very recent invention, was still in its infancy and its potential was unknown. The short range of electric cars was an insurmountable problem. That's why Armand Peugeot decides to start production with a steam-powered. The design of the vehicle is done by the steam car designer Léon Serpollet. In 1886, the company's first car, the Peugeot Type 1, appears. The maximum speed of the 5 HP vehicle is 25 km per hour. Steam cars were heavy and cumbersome. In addition, it was necessary to wait a long time for the water to boil in order to produce steam. When Armand Peugeot met Gottlieb Daimler, who produced cars with internal combustion engines a year after Karl Benz in 1890, he became convinced of the advantages and great potential of the internal combustion engine. In the same year, Peugeot's first internal combustion engine car, the Peugeot Type 2, is produced. The engine is supplied under license from the French company Panhard, which produces Daimler engines. The maximum speed of horsepower vehicle is 18 km per hour. 40 vehicles in 1892 and 156 vehicles in 1895 come off the production line. In 1895, the world's first automobile races were held in Paris. Internal combustion engine cars and steam electric cars race side by side. Peugeot wins the race with its 3 HP car. Due to the disagreement in the family business, Armand Peugeot left the company in 1896 and established the Automobile Peugeot Company. A new factory for automobile production is built in Agincourt. In the same year, the company develops its first engine and ceases to depend on Daimler for engines. With this engine, the 8 HP Peugeot Type 15 was produced in 1897. 276 sales are made in 4 years. In 1899, sales go up to the 300 cars. 1,200 cars are sold that year all over France. In other words, Peugeot owns 25% of the French market. In 1991, when the company failed to finish the Paris race with 250 HP vehicles, it decided to quit the races. Peugeot, which started to produce motorcycles in the same year, becomes one of the oldest motorcycle manufacturers in the world. In 1992 and 1993, the Peugeot Type 36 and Type 63 were produced, taking the Mercedes models as an example. In 1998, large cars such as the Type 105 began to be produced. The economic depression experienced during the First World War pushed the manufacturers to produce small and cheap cars. The Type BP1 Baby, designed by Ettore Bugatti for the German manufacturer Wanderer, attracts the attention of Peugeot. The company buys the license of the vehicle for the French market and begins to produce it in 1912. Only 350 kg and 10 HP small and cheap car was in sufficient demand during the war years. In the same year, the company decides to return to racing with the racing car version of the Peugeot Baby. He makes a big comeback by winning the 1912 French Grand Prix at an average speed of 110 km per hour a year later. Peugeot, which won the Indianapolis Grand Prix held in the USA, became the first non-American company to win this race and increase its prestige in different continents. During the First World War, Peugeot, like other automakers, concentrated on the production of weapons and military vehicles for the army. After the war, the company returned to automobile production more slowly than domestic competitors Renault and Citroën. In 1909, the production of the small family car, the 10 HP Peugeot Type 103, begins. Due to the post-war economic depression, the purchasing power of the people was low. That's why Peugeot decided to bring a cheap and practical supermini car to the market. In 1921, the Peugeot Type 101 comes off the production line as a continuation of the Peugeot Baby, which was produced during the war years. At only 350 kg with a 667cc engine, the vehicle is so narrow that two seats next to each other do not fit, and the seats are placed one behind the other. Peugeot's rival Citroën follows the same path, and a year later it launched the supermini model, the Citroën 5 SV. This attack of Citroën greatly restricts Peugeot's market share, because Citroën, inspired by the Ford company, was Europe's first mass-produced automobile company. Thanks to its high production capacity, it managed to reduce costs. The selling price of the Peugeot Type 161 was 10,000 francs, while the much more advanced cultural 5 SV was priced at 8,500 francs. This situation caused consumers to prefer Citroën. While the 5 SV sells 82,000 units in the 4 years, the Peugeot Type 161 sells 12,000 units. After this result, the company that developed the Type 161 brought the Peugeot 5 SV to the market in 1924. This time, the end will be much better, and the company, which has succeeded in increasing its production capacity, makes sales of 48,000 units in 5 years. In 1924, the 29 HP Peugeot Type 177 started to be produced to compete with the Citroën B2 and Renault KZ in the middle-class market. The vehicle is successful and more than 40,000 sales are made. In the same years, Peugeot cars began to become famous for their durability and became the reason for consumers' preference. In 1928, with the 47 HP Peugeot Type 183 with a more luxurious 6-cylinder engine, the company appeals to all classes, having owned Renault, Peugeot and Citroën until 1932, and France becomes the leading country in the automobile industry in Europe. In 1929, the 23 HP Peugeot 201, the cheapest car in the French market, was put up for sale. With 201, the company switched to a 3-digit naming policy with a 0 in the middle of the models. The leading digit represents the size of the vehicle segment, while the last digit indicates the generation of the vehicle. The 0 watch in the middle represents Peugeot. While many European manufacturers couldn't survive after the Wall Street bankruptcy that took place in America and spread all over the world, the Peugeot 201 with high demand and economical price played a major role in the survival of the company during the Depression period. In fact, the demand is so high that the Peugeot 201 is considered the company's first mass-produced model. Commercial vehicle versions of the 201 are also produced. With the airflow model introduced by American Chrysler in 1934, a revolution was experienced in the automobile industry and the transition was made from box design to aerodynamic design. Peugeot also rose to Peugeot 402, its first model with a separate dynamic body, off the production line a year later. Taking the issue of aerodynamics even further, the company realized that the headlights disrupt the aerodynamics and the headlights are placed inside the front grille. With a 2-liter engine, the 55 HP 402 becomes a luxury vehicle. With safe door handles embedded in the body, automatic transmission and diesel engine options, Peugeot succeeds in being an innovative company. In the same years, Andre Citroën turned to technologies that were not common at that time, such as front-wheel drive, and led Citroën, which was the leader in the local market, into bankruptcy. Using traditional and known technologies, Peugeot, on the other hand, gains a strong position behind Renault in the local market with the bankruptcy of Citroën. Especially with the great contribution of the economic model Peugeot 202, which was released in 1938 on the site of the Peugeot 301, the company's annual sales reached 53,000 units in 1939. In 1938, the company concentrates on the production of military equipment for the French army. Thousands of Peugeot 202 and 402 are delivered to the French army. In 1940, Germany invaded France and the Peugeot with 6,000 employees came under the control of the Nazis. Light trucks such as the Peugeot 202, Peugeot 402, Peugeot DK5 and the Peugeot DMA are produced for the German army. During the war, when the Nazis banned oil for civilian use, Peugeot engineers developed the gasoline-powered Peugeot 402 and 2500 were produced. Also working on electric vehicle development, the company produces the electric microcar, the Peugeot VLV. The vehicle, which can reach a speed of 36 km per hour, has a range of 80 km. When the model, which was produced 377 units, was banned by the Germans, its production was stopped. After the Second World War, Peugeot resumes automobile production. In 1947, the Peugeot 202 was replaced by the Peugeot 203, making it the company's first post-war model. The 41 HP vehicle with the 1.2-liter engine becomes a small family car. The 203 was inspired by the Chevrolet fleet line, which was Chevrolet put on sale in 1941. A station wagon version of the model is also produced. The Peugeot 202 becomes a modern car with independent suspension disc brakes. When the economical price is added, the model starts to see great demand in the market. In 1950, 200 pieces of Peugeot 202 began to come off the production line in a day. In the same year, the Peugeot 203, which had 20% of its sales on the market, is second only to Renault's much simpler and smaller superminor model, Renault CV. Like Renault, Strand's tendency towards cheap, simple mini-class cars after the war leaves Peugeot unrivaled in its class and plays a major role in its success in the domestic market. This success is also carried abroad, and the vehicle is also exported to West Germany. In addition, Peugeots assembled in Australia in 1952 begin to be sold in the Australian market. Like Volkswagen, the company follows a one-model policy. Until 1955, only the Peugeot 203 was produced on the production line. In 1955, the middle-class Peugeot 403 is added to the Peugeot 203. The design of the vehicle is done by the Italian design company Pininfarina. Most of the Peugeot models for the next 50 years will be made by Pininfarina. The Peugeot 403 has 3 boxes or pontoons. 90-degree opening rear doors will be unusual for Europe. The station wagon and coupe versions of the Peugeot 403 also roll off the production line. A pickup version is also produced. The 4-time winner of the East African Safari Rally, the Peugeot 403 also proves its toughness and durability. In 1958, Peugeot models are also put on sale in the American market. The model is very successful in the market, and by selling 1,215,000 units in 11 years, it becomes the first model of the company to sell more than 1 million copies. In 1960, the Peugeot 403 was replaced by the Peugeot 404. The design is again made by Italian Pininfarina. The basis of the model's design is based on the Austin A55 Cambridge model designed by Pininfarina for British PMC in 1958. Combining comfort, quality and economy, the Peugeot 404 is in great demand from consumers. The model, whose production started in Argentina, assembled plants in different parts of the world. While 1,855,000 vehicles leave the production line in France in 15 years, worldwide sales reach up to 2,900,000 units. After the Peugeot 203, which was discontinued in 1960, the company decided to launch a new model for the small class market 5 years later. In 1965, the Peugeot 204 rolled off the production line. The vehicle's competitors in the domestic market are Renault 10 and Simca 1300, produced by Simca under Fiat license. While Renault prefers sharper lines, as in the Renault 16 model, Peugeot uses slightly more rounded lines. The domestic rival of the 204, the Renault 10, was a rear-ended and rear-wheel drive car. The front-engined and front-wheel drive Peugeot 204 has an advantage over its competitors in terms of interior space and trunk space. Having achieved great success, the Peugeot 204 sells 1,600,000 units in 11 years. Always financially cautious, Peugeot France sees a gap in the mid-range market in Italy and Europe. For this reason, he decided to produce a model that will be between the small class Peugeot 203 and the large class Peugeot 404. In 1969, the Peugeot 304, also designed by Pininfarina, comes off the production line. The model was perfect for mid-range consumers who wanted to see a car in Europe that offered a spacious interior with sophisticated, stylish design at their home front. The Peugeot 300, with 4 independent suspension, its disc brakes and handling, offered better ride comfort than many high-priced cars on the market. The model competes with Renault 11 and Strangias in the local market. Produced until 1980, the model sold more than 1 million copies in 12 years and was replaced by the Peugeot 305.
Dear Last Bell subscribers, I am trying to prepare the best content for you. I look forward to seeing you every Sunday and Wednesday. Please don't forget to subscribe and write to me. See you in another content. Nothing is faster than inspire.